A very warm welcome to all my students and viewers. This is the Bishop's Heritage School, Patna, and this is assignment number 4 for class 10, and the subject is History and Civics. We'll be doing the second phase of the Indian national movement today. The second phase of the Indian national movement. With the declining influence of the early nationalists like Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee and W.C. Banerjee, the ideologies of assertive nationalists like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Bipin Chandra Pal came into foray. Now the assertive nationalists, they wanted to assert their points of view. They were not like the early nationalists who believed in sending petitions to the British government and request the British government in a very humble way to give a kind of self-governance to India within the domain of the British Empire. They wanted Purna Swaraj or complete independence. Now, with the absence of sympathizers of India like Gladstone in Britain and Lord Ripon in India, India was dominated by the hostilities of viceroys like Lord Curzon, who during his viceroyalty from 1898 to 1905 best exemplified the imperialistic attitude of him. In 1899, he reduced the number of elected members in the Calcutta Corporation. In 1904, he passed the Indian Universities Act, which cut down the number of elected Senate members, mostly Indians, and passed on key financial power to British government officials. The Official Secret Act of 1904 sought to curtail the freedom of the Indian press. Now that was totally undemocratic. That was a mockery of democracy. Now, he did something that totally changed the dimension of Indian freedom fighting movement. He partitioned Bengal on the basis of religion. One portion was West Bengal, the present-day West Bengal now, which was combined along with Bihar and Orissa, and the other portion was the modern-day Bangladesh along with Assam. That was known as East Bengal, and the capital became Dhaka. He wanted to shatter the confidence of the Bengalis because Bengal at that point of time was the epicenter of Indian politics. So much so, the famous slogan, "What Bengalis think today, India thinks tomorrow," was also a kind of poking, piercing arrow in the heart of Lord Curzon, and therefore he partitioned Bengal. One of the major events that led to the rise of the second phase of the national movement was the partition of Bengal in 1905. The partition of Bengal, or the division of Bengal, carried out by the British Viceroy in India, Lord Curzon, despite strong Indian nationalist opposition. It began a transformation of the Indian National Congress from a middle-class pressure group into a nationwide mass movement. Bengal, Bihar and Orissa had formed a single province of British India since 1765. By 1900, the province had grown too large to handle under a single administration. East Bengal, because of isolation and poor communication, had been neglected in favor of West Bengal and Bihar. Curzon chose one of several schemes for partition to unite Assam, which had been a part of the province until 1874, with 15 districts of East Bengal, and thus form a new province with a population of 31 million. The capital was Dhaka, and the people were mainly Muslims. The Hindus of West Bengal, who controlled most of Bengal's commerce and professional and rural life, complained that the Bengali nation would be split in two, making them a minority in a province, including the whole of Bihar and Orissa. They regarded the partition as an attempt to strangle nationalism in Bengal, which was actually true. Lord Curzon did the partitions into East Bengal and West Bengal to crush the nationalist spirit of Bengal. It was divided into two parts. One part was put together Bihar and Orissa, as I said before, and the other with Assam. With the division, Curzon hoped to obtain a double advantage. One was to split up and thus weaken the nationalist movement. The other one was to set the Muslims and the Hindus against each other. It was clear from the partition that the new province of East Bengal and Assam was specially set up so that Muslims would be in a majority in that area. Partition of Bengal totally shook the national spirits within the Bengalis. In 1911, the year that the capital was shifted from Calcutta to Delhi, East and West Bengal were reunited. Assam again became a chief commissionership, while Bihar and Orissa were separated to form a new province. The aim was to combine appeasement of Bengali sentiment with administrative convenience. This end was achieved for a time, but the Bengali Muslims, having benefited from partition, were angry and disappointed. This resentment remained throughout the rest of the British period. The final division of Bengal at the partitioning of the subcontinent in 1947, which split Bengal into India in the west and east Pakistan, was accompanied by intense violence, which also took place in 1905, which resulted in the anti-partition movement and the boycott and the Swadeshi movements. Continuing with the second phase of the Indian national movement, we come to the segment Reaction Against the Partition of Bengal. In a letter dated 17 January 1904, Lord Curzon wrote, "The Bengalis consider themselves a separate nation and indulge in driving away the British and putting a Bengali Babu in the government house as Governor General. The partition of Bengal would undermine their sense of superiority and destroy their dreams, and that is why they are agitating against it." This was the beginning of the British divide and rule policy. The partition of Bengal was announced on 19 July 1905 and formalized on 16 October 1905. The partition led to Swadeshi and boycott movements. The roots of the Swadeshi movements can be traced to Dadabhai Naoroji's book, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. The importance of textile industry collapsing, importance of economic wealth being drained to England, all these things led to Swadeshi movement definitely, but the main trigger point was the partition of Bengal. The idea of Swadeshi and boycott of foreign goods could be popularized by Bal Gangadhar Tilak and later M.K. Gandhi to great effect. It became the backbone of the Indian freedom struggle. Gandhi's pivotal role in encouraging the hand-spun cloth and manufacturing of salt in India became mass movements. The occupation of British in India was to drive up the British economy by draining Indian wealth. Swadeshi movements stemmed that rot, ensuring that wealth stays in India. This would cause widespread panic among the British administration. People became conscious of the fact that foreign import caused widespread economic distress throughout the nation. The partition of Bengal in 1905 is highly underrated in the Indian freedom struggle and its impact on the educated Indian middle class. In the years following the partition, the armed revolutionaries and Swadeshi protesters would play a vital role in India's independence. However, an important aspect that has been ignored is the impact of 1905 on the evolution of nationalized education system by the Dawn Society and NCE, National Council of Education, which wrested the power of higher education from the British into Indian hands. The Dawn Society was set up in Calcutta by Satish Chandra Mukherjee, an educationist and the founder of the Dawn magazine, which was published in Bengali. Notable intellectuals from that era, Rabindranath Tagore, Aurobindo Ghosh, and Rajendra Prasad were members of the Dawn Society. The journal dealt with issues in depth, inspiring the Swadeshi movement and appealing to intellectuals and bright students to come out of anglicized institutions such as the Calcutta University. Other famous members of the Dawn Society were Sister Nivedita and the renowned revolutionary Bhaga Jatin, Jyotindranath Mukherjee. The Dawn Society raised money from eminent landed gentry at that time to set up a National Council of Education in 1905. The reaction against the partition of Bengal also gave birth to a kind of armed revolution. The British administration, rattled by the rise of boycott and Swadeshi, became increasingly repressive in nature. Lathi charges, unfair arrests, and even deployment of soldiers to force the purchase of British goods became so common that even British newspapers published from England criticized the administration. A natural reaction to the British tyranny was the growth of armed revolution. The Anushilhan Samiti and Jugantar would serve as the two main organizations that would mark that was termed as the Agni Yug, the era of the fire. Underground cells sprung up to train Indians in weapons and bomb-making. Assassinations of anti-Swadeshi officials who brutally crushed protests became commonplace. Such tactics and their success would subsequently inspire revolutionaries all across the nation, from Bhagat Singh in Punjab to Surya Sen in Chittagong or Chattogram, and of course later Subhash Chandra Bose. Without going into much of details about individual revolutionaries who surfaced after 1905, such as Khudiram Bose, Bhaga Jatin, Prafulla Chaki and Raj Bihari Bose, we must focus and try to understand that Indians all over the world saw armed resistance to British rule as a feasible method of gaining independence. Boycott and Swadeshi movements. From 1903, the partition proposals became publicly known. So during the 1903 to 1905 period, moderate techniques of petitions, memorandums, speeches, public meetings and press campaigns held full sway. But despite the widespread protests, the decision to partition Bengal was announced on 19 July 1905. The Congress leadership then made the final proclamation of the Swadeshi movement on 7th August 1905 in a meeting held at the Town Hall, Calcutta. Then in the same year, the annual Congress session, which took place at Banaras, took up the Swadeshi call under the presidency of Gopal Krishna Gokhale. The people were urged to boycott foreign cloth, and the shops selling foreign goods were picketed. the Ganpati and Shivaji festivals popularized by Tilak became a medium of Swadeshi propaganda. People tied Rakhis on each other's hands as a symbol of unity of two halves of Bengal. Rabindranath Tagore also made huge contribution in the movement. He made public speeches, wrote essays, short stories, poems inspiring the Bengali mind. His patriotic songs swayed the Bengali heart, touched a chord within, and filling them with love and pride for their country. Women came out of their homes for the first time and joined processions and picketing. During the movement, even the moderate leaders like Surendranath Banerjee toured the country urging the people to unite and boycott British-made goods. Both partition took effect on 16th October 1905. On this day, people fasted and no fires were lit at the cooking hearth. In Calcutta, Hartal was declared. On this day, Anand Mohan Bose and Surendranath Banerjee addressed two huge mass meetings. However, the partition, instead of dividing and weakening the Bengalis, further united them through the anti-partition agitation. The Curzon administration had ignored the emerging Bengali identity which cut across narrow interest groups, class as well as regional barriers. Aims of the Swadeshi and boycott movements. To secure the annulment of the partition of Bengal was one of the primary aims of the Swadeshi and boycott movements. Second, passive resistance to oppose the British colonial rule through violation of its unjust laws. Boycott of British goods such as Manchester cloth and the Liverpool salt and British institutions. And finally, development of indigenous alternatives, that is Swadeshi goods and national education. Spread of Swadeshi and boycott movements. The call for boycott and Swadeshi was given at numerous public meetings throughout Bengal and in other states as well as cities across India. Under Tilak's inspiring leadership, the movement gained momentum. The militant nationalists put forward several fresh ideas at the theoretical, propaganda and program levels. Among the several forms of struggle thrown up by the movement were: 1. Boycott of foreign good. This included boycott and public burning of foreign clothes, boycott of foreign-made salt or sugar, refusal by priests to ritualize marriages involving exchange of foreign goods, refusal by women to wash foreign clothes. This form of protest met with greater success at the practical and popular level. Public meeting and procession. These emerged as major methods of mass mobilization and simultaneously as forms of popular expression. Crops of volunteers of Samitis. Samitis such as the Swadesh Bandhav Samiti of Ashwini Kumar Datta and Barisal, Bengal, emerged as a very popular and powerful method of mass mobilization. These Samitis generated political consciousness among the masses through magic lantern lectures, Swadeshi songs, physical and moral training to their members, social work during famines and epidemics, organization of schools, training in Swadeshi crafts, and abbreviation of courts, imaginative use of traditional popular festivals and meals. The idea was to use such occasions as a means of reaching out to the masses and spreading political messages. For instance, Tilak's Ganpati and Shivaji festivals became a medium of Swadeshi propaganda not only in Western India but also in Bengal. In Bengal also the traditional folk theatre forms were used for the purpose. Emphasis given to self-reliance or Atma Shakti. This implied reassertion of national dignity, honor and confidence, and social villages, economic regeneration in the village sector. In practical terms, it included social reforms and campaigns against caste oppression, early marriage, dowry system, consumption of alcohol, etc. Program of Swadeshi on national education. Bengal National College, inspired by Tagore's Shantiniketan, was set with Aurobindo Ghosh as its principal. Soon national school and colleges sprang up in various parts of the country. On August 15, 1906, the National Council of Education was set up to organize a system of education, literary, scientific and technical, on national lines and under national control. Education was to be imparted through the medium of vernaculars. A Bengal Institute of Technology was set up for technical education, and funds were raised to send students to Japan or advanced learning. Swadeshi or indigenous enterprises. The Swadeshi spirit was also found expression in the establishment of Swadeshi textile mills, soap and match factories, tanneries, banks, insurance companies, shops, etc. These enterprises were based more on patriotic zeal than on business acumen. So these are the means by which Swadeshi movement and boycott movement spread throughout the country. The movement evoked response in UP, central provinces, Bombay, Punjab, Madras. Spurred by the idea of national industries, Bombay and Ahmedabad mills produced 1 lakh bales of cloth to meet the growing demands. The idea of national education also made good progress in Berar, Mumbai and Chennai. Now we come to the section where we shall be discussing about the impact of the Swadeshi and boycott movements. The Swadeshi and boycott movements had far-reaching consequences on the struggle for independence. It gives strength to the national movement. Lord Curzon had the intentions to divide Bengalis and Bengal into two halves and destroy the very morale and spinal cord of the Bengali cult. But the Swadeshi and boycott movements unified not only the Bengalis but the entire Indians against the imperialistic rule of the British Empire. It gives stimulus to the native industries. The movement gave stimulus to cottage industries and even to large-scale enterprises. Swadeshi textile mills, match and soap factories and potteries sprang up everywhere. Many zamindars, merchants and landlords joined the movement as well. The Swadeshi movement also affected the cultural life of the people. A new type of nationalist poetry, prose and journalism charged with passion and idealism came into existence. Song of Bande Mataram by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee became a kind of national anthem. Stories, poems and dramas organized and performed by the students of Shantiniketan or Rabindranath Tagore also came into foray. The anglicized education went for a toss at the national movement at that point of time, thanks to the Swadeshi and boycott movement, gave rise to Indian kind of education. A scheme of national education was formulated by Satish Chandra Mukherjee, the editor of Dawn in 1898. The British government tried to suppress the boycott agitation with a heavy hand. Meetings were banned, processions were banned, students were arrested, they were rusticated from schools and colleges. But that only unified the entire mass agitation against the British imperialist rule at that point of time. The split in the Congress in 1907. The Swadeshi movement did not immediately produce the intended result of destabilizing the British rule. It negatively affected the unity of the Congress owing to differences over the method of agitation in Bengal. History very seldom records the things that were decisive, but took place behind the veil. It records the show in front of the curtain. Very few people know that it was Sri Aurobindo, without consulting Tilak, who gave the order that led to the breaking of the Congress and was responsible for the refusal to join the newfangled moderate convention, which were the two decisive happenings at Surat. In 1906, Sri Aurobindo came to Bengal with the purpose of a public initiation of a more forward and direct political action than the moderate reformism, which had till then been the creed of the Indian National Congress. He joined the new party which had been recently formed in the Congress and persuaded its chiefs in Bengal to come forward publicly as an all-India party, the Nationalist Party, with Tilak at its head, and to attack the then dominant moderate, reformist or liberal oligarchy of veteran politicians and capture from them the Congress and the country. Moderate plan for retrogression. The nationalists came to know that Bombay moderate leaders were bent upon receding from the position taken up by the Calcutta Congress on Swaraj, boycott and national education. The moderates had drafted a new constitution where there was a direct attempt to tamper with the ideal of self-government on the lines of self-governing colonies as settled at Calcutta, and to exclude the nationalists from the Congress by making the acceptance of this new creed an indispensable condition of Congress membership. The session of the Congress had first been arranged at Nagpur instead of Surat, but Nagpur was predominantly a Maratha city and violently extremist. Gujarat was at that time predominantly moderate. There were very few nationalists, and Surat was a stronghold of moderatism though afterwards Gujarat became, especially after Gandhi took the lead, one of the most revolutionary of the provinces. So the moderate leaders decided to hold the Congress session at Surat. It was known that the moderate leaders had prepared a new constitution for the Congress, which would make it practically impossible for the extreme party to command a majority at any annual session for many years to come. The younger nationalists, especially those from Maharashtra, were determined to prevent this by any means, and it was decided by them to break the Congress if they could not swamp it. This decision was unknown to Tilak and the older leaders, but it was known to Sri Aurobindo. At the sessions, Tilak went on to the platform to propose a resolution regarding the presidency of the Congress. The members, with regard to the nature of Swaraj, they also had a difference of opinion. At one section of the Congress, led by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, wanted to achieve dominion status, that is self-government under the crown. They did not want to sever their connections with Britain, since they had faith in the British rule. However, another section, led by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal and Lala Lajpat Roy, wanted to achieve full freedom and were in favor of using even force to turn the British out of India, as they always sought full freedom. The early nationalists did not fully approve the resolutions passed in 1906. They wanted to undo what had happened at the Kolkata session. The assertive nationalists did not want this to happen. The quarrel started on the election of the president. The assertive nationalists wanted to have a president of their own choice. So the conflict was taking place. The early nationalists met separately and adopted the constitution of the Congress and closed the doors of the party to those who did not believe in constitutional methods. So this is the chapter of the second phase of the rise of the national movement. We got to see how that gave strength to the national movement, how Congress was split, how partition of Bengal affected the entire movement, how anti-partition movement took place, how the movement was spread, and all this led platform to the rise of assertive nationalism, which we'll be doing in the next session.